What you're looking at right now is the most controversial character in this entire show, and this scene is a great example of why she is so divisive.
Okay, so slow down. Slow down. Slow down. You're going way too fucking fast right now.
Let me tell you something, Boyd. Boyd doesn't know what he's doing. Any of you people know what the fuck you're doing.
But you do.
What we see happening here in this moment with the woman known as Acosta is a great showing of why this character behaves the way that she does and why she has consistently been doing the things that she's been doing ever since first arriving into the town. Because when you really start to think about her actions, the motivations behind them, and why she does the things that she does, it starts to paint a very clear picture of the type of mentality that would be required for someone to continuously keep behaving in the same ways that we repeatedly see from Acosta's actions. Despite the incredibly tragic outcome the people of this town have already seen from the consequences of what she did on the very first night she arrived into the town. Because what I really want you to notice here is that Acosta chooses to speed down a road in a town with dozens of people, despite the fact that ultimately it is not necessary for her to do so in order to determine whether or not the people of the town lied to her about the looping road or not. She could drive at a much slower speed and still accomplish that goal, but yet she chooses not to. And this just shows us something that we already know very well about Acosta. She intentionally chooses to drive at this speed simply because she knows it would annoy Boyd and cause him to freak out. So this is her act of defiance against the person who took away her gun. This is her act of defiance against the person who took away her power. In other words, satisfying her own ego and her desire to feel powerful is more important to Acosta than the very likely potential of ending yet another person's life by slamming into them with a death machine that easily weighs the same as a raging elephant. And this is why this next piece of dialogue is so important for us to truly understand why Acosta acts the way that she does.
But you do.
Yeah, well, at least I'm trying. I think hell is for people who think that they deserve to suffer, and I don't. I am a good person.
None of us deserve to be here.
I don't know that. Maybe the reason that you don't try harder is deep down you think that you deserve to be here.
This moment right here between Acosta and Christy in the ambulance is a very revealing moment for us to start to really understand how Acosta's brain actually functions and why she behaves in the way that she behaves. But most importantly, we are now starting to get a very solid idea about why Acosta believes herself to be a better choice to be the leader of the town than Boyd, and why in general she shows such disregard for the very valid opinion of the others living in this town. Because when we really take a look at what she says to Christy in this scene, it becomes clear that in Acosta's own perception of the world, despite the fact that she literally killed an innocent woman like less than a week ago at this point, she still believes herself to be more morally virtuous than everyone else in the town, and likely everyone else in the world as well. And we know this to be true because she specifically says that she as an individual does not deserve to be in hell. This is laughable and makes it very clear just how twisted and delusional her view on the world truly is. Because what she's really saying here is that despite the fact that most people in the town are not murderers, and definitely most people in the real world obviously aren't either, they deserve to be in hell more than she does. This is obviously completely and totally insane, and it's just one of the many signs given to us by the writers, showing us very, very clearly just how highly this person views herself relative to other people in society. And it starts to give us a very direct look as to why Acosta is clearly suffering from a mental illness that I'm sure we are all very familiar with at this point. Something heavily supported by what I'm about to show you next.
Ethan, okay, pull over. He's a fucking kid in the woods whose father just died. Pull over!
He's fine.
This moment right here, I think this is really what you have to pay attention to, because it gives us a straight on and very clear view about the type of person that Acosta really is, and why there is clearly something very, very wrong with her perception of the world and her position in it. As what we're really seeing in this moment is just part of a very consistent theme we repeatedly see with this character, and that is her blatant disregard for any human life that is not her own. Because even when you really think about her actions when she first arrived into the town, she did not have any idea what this town was or the nature of it. But yet, she just kept blasting at everything that was moving around her. Like, basically, what I'm saying is that Acosta didn't know who was a monster and who wasn't, but she was still shooting at everything anyway and wasn't even trying to communicate with any of them. So, one of these monsters could have easily been a human being trying to approach her so that they could help her. But that was not a concern for Acosta. After all, if it isn't her own life, then why should she care? However, you can make the excuse that she was panicking in that moment and had no idea what was going on, but that excuse doesn't really fly anymore, because even after learning that there are real human beings in the town, people that are obviously trying to help her, we still see Acosta waving around her gun like a madman all over the place after she got it back. So the only reason why she hasn't already killed someone else by this point is because Boyd doesn't allow her to have any bullets. And what this really shows us is that even after seeing the consequences of her reckless actions, she still is not taking the steps required to prevent another accidental death. In other words, she refuses to take responsibility for her actions and take precautions to make sure that what happened before won't happen ever again. And the reason why is simple. She literally just doesn't care.
I know.
You don't know shit. What you did to that kid up there. You're a monster.
Like, if you know that you're too emotional and that your first instinct will always be to raise your gun and pull the trigger whenever you hear a loud noise, the morally right and logical thing to do would be to give up your gun to someone else who doesn't suffer from impulse control. Well, at the bare minimum, that is what someone who feels remorse for taking out an innocent woman would actually do. But we don't see that from Acosta, because in the mind of someone who values power above everything else, people are just accessories who can be discarded and replaced at a moment's notice. Like, notice how she chose to abandon Ethan on the side of the road, even though she knows that he literally saw his dead father's body hanging up in the barn on display less than a few hours ago. And the reason why she did this is simple. There is no benefit in her mind for helping Ethan at this moment, so she just decided to ignore him. So just like we've already seen multiple times before, Acosta clearly has a lack of empathy, and if it isn't directly affecting her own life, then it might as well be completely irrelevant. But what's really most important here is to remember that Ethan was not involved whatsoever in the torture of Elgin, and what this really shows us is that she doesn't actually believe in the morals that she constantly criticizes Boyd and the people of the town for not having. Because it's very ironic that out of everybody in this entire town, Acosta is quite literally the only person that would choose to abandon Ethan in this moment. So if the people of this town are really that monstrous, and yet Acosta is clearly worse than all of them, then what does that make her? However, when it comes to Acosta's belief that Boyd is a monster, she is actually 100% correct. So, like, just watch what I'm about to show you.
If anybody asks, you're gonna tell them that you lost your eye trying to help Fatima.
And if I don't?
And I will tell everyone that you killed Tilly. Then I'm gonna put you in the box.
What we see here happening with Boyd is part of a very long-running theme in this show that has been playing out ever since the very first season. Because what I really want you to focus on here is that Boyd did not have to threaten Elgin with blaming him for what happened to Tilly or sending him into the box, but he still chose to do it, even though there was a much more morally right solution, which would have just been telling him the truth, i.e. that the kimono demon had been lying to him the entire time, and that it's because of Elgin's own stupidity that Fatima ended up being used by this place to resurrect the demon known as Smiley. And remember, Elgin was right there when Boyd killed Smiley, so there was literally no reason why he wouldn't just be honest with him instead of threatening him the way that he did. And what he did here with Elgin is definitely one of the dumbest things Boyd has ever done, because Elgin is still going to think that the kimono was trying to help them, which obviously leaves him vulnerable to being manipulated yet again. But Boyd still chose to do it, and ultimately I think the reason why is because it made him feel powerful. Like, there's a reason why Boyd is being overlaid on top of the man in yellow in the poster for season 4. And when you look at the tagline saying, "Fear what you become and become what you fear," it's very clear to me that Boyd is being transformed into an absolute monster, and that more specifically he is being transformed into the type of person who believes that fear is an acceptable way to get what you want from the people of the town. So he is doing the same thing that we see from the entity in control of the monsters, and obviously it's the same thing that we see from the man in yellow. And this is just more signs of what we already know. The entity has been manipulating us in so many ways that it's crazy. Like, even when you look at this scene with the supposed ghost of Jim Matthews, it's very obvious that the entity is playing us yet again. So go watch this video right here to see why this is not the first time that we've seen this being pretending to be the ghost of Jim Matthews.